I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, I'd like to call this meeting of the Town of Plattsburgh Town Board to order for December 6, 2010. We have a roll call, please.
Bernie Bassett.
Here.
Tom Wood. Gerard Renadette.
Here.
Mark Manick.
Here.
Paul Lemoyne.
Here.
James Coffey.
Here.
Rick Collins.
Resolution 383, approving the minutes of the previous meetings.
Resolved that the minutes of November 15th and November 22nd, 2010 be approved and the reading of the minutes be dispensed with.
A motion.
So moved.
I don't have a clue. Yeah, Mr. Lemoyne, thank you. Second, Mr. Renadette?
Yes, sir.
Any discussion? A roll call.
Thomas Wood. Gerard Renadette.
Yes.
Mark Manick.
Yes.
Paul Lemoyne.
Yes.
Bernie Bassett.
Yes. This is the portion of our meeting where we invite anyone who would like to address the board to do so, but first of all, I'd like to invite Mike Ryan, who's been doing an internship with the town, to share with us what he has this evening. And then, Mike, when you're done, we'll put that aside so we don't block it.
Okay. Thank you. My name is Mike Ryan. I'm a student intern from SUNY Plattsburgh doing work at the planning department of the town of Plattsburgh, and I'm here to briefly show you some of the maps that I made during my project. This one here is the first one I made. It's a traffic count map of the town of Plattsburgh. As you can see, there's individual traffic values labeled for each segment. The data is from the New York State Department of Transportation and Clinton County. Also, the darker roads represent more densely traveled roads in the town. You can see the most dense areas around Route 3, near 87. Makes sense.
Before we move that one, Mike, question.
Yeah.
What period of time did you gather data for and capture data from?
I gathered the most recent data I could find. Most of it is from 2008. For each traffic count, there's also labeled the year of which the data was gathered. Like I said, most of it's from 2008. Some of them are from 2006, 2004, but the map reflects those years.
Okay, and the you mentioned Route 3 had the highest traffic count. What was that average daily count?
Well, there's a few segments along Route 3. The average daily traffic count between 87 and the on-ramp for 87 was 27,850, and that's per day.
I'm wanting you to emphasize that because I'm not sure that people really realize.
Over 27,000 in one day, yes. Any other comments about this map? This one here is the second map I made. It's a very simple map of the current ambulance districts in the town of Plattsburgh. You can see the red one represents the west ambulance district and the blue represents the east. And the boundary between these two is a 500-foot buffer east of 190 and Military Turnpike, and then Pellerin Road to the north. So those are the two updated ambulance districts.
Were you able, or are you able to tell, for example, how many homes are in each district, what the tax base in each district would be?
Using the GIS system, you would be able to. On this map, you can't see the individual parcels, but
once the data's in the system and within GIS, the layers allow us to cross-reference data?
Yes, sir. We would be able to find that out. And this is a map that was originally made by James Bosley, historic sites in the town of Plattsburgh. And what I did was I updated this. I added roads to the map itself, and I also changed the arrows pointing to these sites. And I labeled the major roads and any roads that contain a historic site. So it'd be easier for people to find those and recognize them. And this is the map that took the most amount of work. I did a lot of looking through resolutions, find updated roads, new roads, road abandonments. This is a road map, updated road map of the town of Plattsburgh. And there's an index, an alphabetical index for the listing of each road. And using the grid, you can locate each road. For example, it'll say S12, and you use that to find the road. And on this map, each road on the map has its own symbology, meaning the North Way has it's red and it's a little bit wider. State roads are green, so there's different colors and sizes for each of those on this map. And then this map is pretty much the same thing, except all roads are black and the same size. And then this is also a road map, but this one includes the zoning districts on it. And there's a legend right here showing each of the zoning districts and their color. And finally, this is a map showing speed zones within the town of Plattsburgh. The roads with a slower speed limit are green, and red represents faster speed limit. For a lot of these, I had to go out into the field, drive out there, and mark on a orthophoto printout where the speed limit changes were, where the speed limit signs were, to get an accurate reflection of where the speed limits changed. And I was also provided by the highway department a binder full of town roads to show what signs are along that road. So I would use, it would say speed limit sign 30 miles per hour. So I'd use that to mark which roads are 30 miles per hour. The only concern I have with this map is that roads without a posted speed limit are 55. That's what they're considered, 55 miles per hour. So there's quite a few smaller roads on there where it says 55. But other than that, that's all the maps I have. Any questions or comments?
The only thing missing from that map is the location of state police cruisers.
That's right.
We could probably sell those maps.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your work. We appreciate it very much, Mike. You know, and it helps to underscore for us the value of the GIS mapping, and we'll continue, I think, the discussion.
Working with the college too is a big part of this.
That's a huge part, and for the department, for Phil and James to provide an opportunity to share. We hear an awful lot about sharing services. Unfortunately, we don't hear a lot about the services we do share, and there are many. It's a win-win situation. It certainly gives students an opportunity to work in a real-world, authentic setting, work with real data, produce real documents that have value versus reports that are theoretical. It also gives us some insight as to what's possible with some of the software we have. And I know, Phil, you've been lobbying for some time to try and get more resources to develop the GIS mapping. Another project that's certainly also very valuable would be to indicate our infrastructure, our water sewer lines, where the hydrants are, to enable us to do a better job with flushing, if nothing else, by having the accurate data.
It's quite a bit more extensive data collection, but and it may be something that the Water and Sewer Department can budget for, where we could bring on a summer hire college student just to do specifically that kind of data collection. And getting the proper software add-on to go with this to build that, and it'd be highly desirable. But I'd like to really see this opportunity of perhaps, what Mike did was a single 3-credit hour project, independent study, and I really want to commend his exemplary. He did a really great job. He was very diligent in the effort that he applied to this project, and then James for watching over and supervising that work. The combination of the two of them was great, and I think, Mike, you got some good real-world experience out of it. You got to come into an office environment. He's going to get a great recommendation from me for sure. And I think that this was a great opportunity. I hope we can continue this in the future. We've worked over the years on and off with various college students in our office, and boy, I'd really like, I think that we could come up with a list of different types of GIS projects that we can just continue on and work forward with those. And, you know, extending out the work with the college to, our master plan talks about collaborating with the college on a biological survey of the town, another GIS project. That would be, you know, a longer-term kind of project. Next semester, we're looking at, we'd like to, if we can get a student in here, to work in identifying the more linear things, right, are a little easier for us to do than all those specific spot points. So I'd like to get the sidewalks and paved bike, or paved shoulder areas identified so that we can work on a pathways project as identified both with the recreation plan and with the master plan. So,
Phil, we should acknowledge the instructor in the course, the professor that also collaborated with us.
Dr. Richard Lamb.
Dr. Lamb.
Yes, sir.
It obviously takes someone from that side willing to do the collaboration. Unless you've actually gone through the process, and I know we worked with James, began the mapping of all of our historical markers, which on Friday, December 10th, there's going to be a rollout of the county destination master plan. There'll be a lot of publicity with that. I think it's a pretty significant event. And paying attention to, and even more importantly, developing those sites within the town of Plattsburgh, as well as, you know, county-wide, is going to be very important to our future. This kind of work, and James, you put a lot of time into the map you did. Is there any ballpark? And I would guess there's different data that you're trying to capture, requires a different amount of time, there are different problems, but to produce a map of the type that you shared with us, how many hours go into something like that?
60, approximately.
Approximately 60 per map. Research, doing it, drafting, revising, wow. So it's a great deal of work, and I think that needs to be noted, as well as nice job, Mike.
these maps will go on the town website as well, so they'll be available. You know, they're useful information.
Good. Well, again, the collaboration, the projects, it's all a win-win situation. We appreciate it. Anyone have any other questions or comments concerning that issue?
Really,
Okay.
again, great congratulations to
Yes.
Mike for
Absolutely. Yeah, we appreciate it. Hopefully he has many friends. We have many projects.
Thank you very much.
Good luck to you also, Mike, as you move forward.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Getting back to our agenda a bit, as I mentioned, it's the time in the evening when we invite people who would like to address the board. We seem to have a number of individuals here today, so I'm going to ask that we work hard to stay with the structure that each person, when you come forward, we ask you to speak into the mic so we record your comments. State your name, your address for the record, and try and limit your comments to 5 minutes. If anyone would like to comment.
Supervisor Bassett, board members, those in attendance, my name is Mark Bell. I live at 273 Cumberland Head Road. Thank you for allowing me to speak at this meeting. The statement and the questions I'm about to talk about concern the latest proposal for a public sewer system on part of Cumberland Head. When I first read about this proposal, I was outraged at the board's decision to bring this up again after we voted this down by a 2-to-1 margin last year. It certainly seems to me that the board has no respect for taxpayers and people whom you are elected to listen to by trying to bring this proposal back again. What part of no don't you understand? When I asked Mr. Bassett, how he could justify spending taxpayer money on this after it had been largely voted down, he responded that it only cost 28 cents for postage for each postcard that was sent out. What Mr. Bassett failed to mention was a $4,500 payment to R.J. LaBarge and the countless hours incurred by both board members, town employees, town lawyer, plus the mailing and printing of all involved information. The majority of this proposal does not make sense to me. The system, should it go through, should be equally beneficial to all and should not be better for some than others. Also, the financial burden should be shared equally by all. There is no justification for one homeowner to pay more than another homeowner and get an inferior system. Furthermore, the homes in Rocky Point that have lower assessments will have a better system and will not have the same financial burden as other homeowners. Why should all the other homes with higher assessed values have to get an inferior system and pay more for it? In my opinion, the town board is counting on Rocky Point property owners who will pay the least and will be getting a better system. You are offering them a gravity-fed system and the rest of us a macerated grinder system, which is more costly and less efficient. I have polled many people in the proposed sewer district, and here are the results as of today. 35 people are against it, 4 are in favor, 2 want more information, and 1 person is neutral. Thank you for your time.
Mark, I noticed you had a written statement. Do you have a copy of that for us so we can enter it into the record?
Yep.
I appreciate that. I can give it to our clerk.
Yep.
Anyone else that would like to address the board? Okay. This is a time, as I said, when we usually listen, we take comments. We're very careful to make a response. And I'm going to do so this evening. But I do think it's important that, again, we share that somewhat as Mr. Bell's personal survey, there are some people who have indicated public sewer is a desirable thing for them. We had that information before. There's often been a comparison. I believe Mr. Bell began with the feeling that, bringing this back after it was voted down very soundly was a very foolish thing. It might be from a perspective, but what we have to look at as a town board is our responsibility to all the constituents. And, as you referenced, the concern that everyone would have a equal system and everyone would pay a fair share. If there are individuals who say this is something we need to pay attention to them. My comment about the cost of a stamp was simply referencing that by doing a direct mailing to those who would be impacted, it did a couple of things. There may be some people here this evening who didn't get a letter. There could be an error. Obviously, we may not have everyone's address, and addresses change. But the probability is you didn't get a letter because you're not in the proposed district. There's some real globalization of it was coming back. It didn't come back. That's gone, as we shared before. After the last project went away, we received notice that for that project, we would receive another $1.5 million to help offset the cost. We shared with the funding agency that project was no longer to be. Long story short, they indicated, obviously a great deal of work was already done, some interest had surfaced. If there was a smaller group of people that would benefit from this, and if that group of people wanted this, we could direct those funds to them. And this time we would be able to do more with those funds than we were able to do the previous monies that were allocated to us. This board, and I'll certainly invite anyone to speak for themselves, but collectively, we decided it would be irresponsible if we did not ask that group of people if this is something they wanted. The feedback we're getting, I don't have the details on that. Last time I looked, it was about 50-50. People that said no, and people that said, I'd like more information. I'll have that updated for our board at the work session. I believe we'll see the numbers have changed a bit, but that surprised me. In fact, in a meeting with Mark, I told him I doubted very seriously this would go anywhere. But we had $1.5 million in front of us, and some people that said, as you found, some people that said, I'd like this. I think there are some individuals, and maybe that's why they want more information, they recognize the value. If it wasn't going to cost an arm and a leg, it might be quite interesting. Second question would probably be, what does cost of use mean to me? And there is no free lunch. There is a cost, and this is not water. It's much more expensive. And there are some nuances such that if two neighbors, if there's access to public sewer, and it's in front of your home, you don't have a choice, according to the health department. So there are some facts that are a little different than I think they're feeling, and I feel bad. There have been a number of you who have worked very hard to make sure this doesn't happen, because we're not there yet. All we've done before we send the money back, and you always hate to send money back, is solicit individually the people that would be impacted to tell us they would like more information or not. If that comes out in a way that the board feels we need to be more specific now and maybe have a meeting and have some conversation with people, they would do so. If the feedback is such that, no, the vast majority, when individually polled, say no, it's done. And we will then be able to report to the funding agency that we did as we're supposed to do, which is find out from people versus make assumptions based on, what appears to be the popular opinion. And it's not going to work this time. In fact, as I mentioned to Mark, I said one thing that I'm trying to make some lemonade out of these lemons. One thing that can be very helpful is when we go to funding agencies with a project that needs to be done. I don't care if it's paving our roads, doing water systems, public sewer systems, any number of projects that we're responsible for. When I can go back and say, thank you, but the people today can't afford the balance. They can't afford the ongoing monthly or annual cost. We need more help. And I believe I also shared with Mark in our meeting that I recalled about 4 years ago in a meeting with Senator Schumer, he acknowledged then that it had been about 30 years that the federal government had provided a significant amount of money for public sewer systems across the country. And town of Plattsburgh, Cumberland Head is very typical to probably most communities, and that there's a need, and the communities can't afford to do it. The federal government, the state government would like it to all come out of our pockets, but we can't. And Senator Schumer acknowledged that, and at that time, that's before the economic crisis, and I know some of the councilors were there, I was pretty optimistic that we might see some funding to enable us to upgrade systems, just as we've seen with bridges and other needs. It didn't happen. By doing this data gathering process, if it comes out such that people say, this isn't going to work for us, if we have some people indicating, I have some interest, as you found, but the economics don't work, it helps me get that message back, versus the other option that maybe some people would rather see, but I wouldn't do it, and I wouldn't do it after tonight. The other option would be just to send it back and say, no, that has no value. Now that's the comments I made the first time. That's basically what I, saw in the letter, and that story hasn't changed. The idea that this board's trying to jam anything down anybody's throat is totally off the purpose of why we're here.
Is there a timetable?
Timetable for what?
Getting all your answers back and,
We put one on the letter, so people would see it and respond to it and get it back, and, we have as much information as we can get quickly. The real timetable is if this were to happen, because there's a deadline that these funds have to be used, construction would have to start in the spring. There's an enormous amount of work that would be done between now and then. As I said, based on the vote on the Cumberland Head Fire Department. I wasn't going to be surprised if the community didn't want it. But we can't make that assumption, and I can't use the data if I don't gather any to try and see if, we're getting the message across, we need more help. Probably the question is, when does this go away, for those of you that aren't interested? As I said, we'll have a work session, we'll look at what the actual numbers are. I can't speak for the other 4 people. But I don't think they've come in 99% with little notes that said, oh, please do this.
How about the Canadian correspondence? The Canadians told me that, like, I got my letter and there were Canadians there, and I showed it to them, and they said, oh, mine's going to come to Canada. But then it didn't come, and it didn't come, and then it came, and it was too late to send it back.
There is no too late. That's our date. It's not like there's a shut-off if it came a week later.
They took it to mean that they couldn't send it back.
I mean, I have no response for that. I wish they would have responded when they got it, and, you can always make a note, this may be late, but I didn't get it until today, sort of thing. We don't need 100% of the responses to make a decision, and that might be, really the best thing to keep in mind.
I just would add a comment. I received a number of calls that just were directed to me to take those calls, and they were from Canadian residents that own property primarily in the Rocky Ridge area. And in the course of those conversations, all of those people had received the postcard and the mailing. And their concern was, could they get it back in time for that mailing or whatever? And we assured them that this meeting is the 6th, that postcard referenced the 30th. And I said, there won't be any decisions made even at the night of the 6th. So we've got time for materials to come back. And as I said, most of them indicated to me that they had received it within a week of its being postmarked, which they were actually a little surprised, because that's better than what they would normally see. Yeah.
Okay.
Where are you getting that 50% of the people voting yes and no?
The last time that I checked with our staff on responses, that day I was told they came in 50-50.
Last year you guys mentioned the same thing, 50-50, and it got voted down by way more than 50-50. This year it seems like it's the same thing. I live on Cumberland Head, I live on the other side out of this district, and I don't talk to anybody who is for it. I live right out there, I talk to many people. 50-50 just doesn't seem realistic.
And that doesn't mean that half said no and half said yes. There were a number then who said, I want more information. They might have wanted more information to say no. I mean, that's also, as you work a process forward, that's also why you may have a referendum vote. Because at the end of the day, you need a secret ballot where people can express themselves. People sometimes are intimidated by the conversation, if it's with a neighbor who is strong in favor of it, or a neighbor who's strong against it. And that's why you have secret ballots. this may go that direction, and it probably won't. I mean, all I can tell you is, you know, what we've got.
I got a letter, and by reading the definition of where it is, I'm not even in the district.
I can't respond to that, I don't have the
There was
the
no
maps
map or
or
anything, it's just a description.
Yeah, and that's possible, and it's not a perfect science.
Because if it was right, it's a vacant lot.
Mhm. Vacant lot, the owner of a vacant lot would also need to express their opinion.
We did.
Good.
Yeah.
You don't have to have a house there. Okay?
I don't think a number of people are against it. I think it's the cost
I think you're right.
of it. It's not, you know, I think if you were to poll everybody and said, it's not gonna cost you anything, everybody would want it. It's the taxes that Cumberland had are high to begin with. And I figured out what it would cost me just at my house. It would cost me $1,500 more a year. We used 124,000 gallons of water last year, which is about $531. And with the assessment, it would cost us about almost $900.
Yeah. I totally agree with you, Brian.
Just on top of what we already have.
Sure.
I mean, I would love to have it. I mean, at my camp next door, you know, I could really use it there.
Well, and anyone who has property that you would like to sell or develop, having that makes the difference of selling or developing it, as we know. And there are some people that do have a problem, and we know that. And in fact, I'm going to push the envelope just a little bit, because this helps me when responding to the agencies. You know, I'm sure there are some bureaucrats who think, you know, they helped town of Plattsburgh, they sent them some money. Well, yeah, that's close, but that doesn't quite do the trick. Just a show of hands, if you're willing to, like I said, I'm kind of stepping out of the box here a little. Nothing committal, we aren't taking any pictures today. If this had no cost to build and a price similar to water, most of you have water, I would guess, you know, where maybe it's $20 or $30 a quarter, maybe $50 a quarter. Would that be more interest? In other words, what I need to know is the cost the biggest factor? If so, I mean, I used to teach school. If so, if you raise your hand, that helps me. I can go back and say it's the cost, guys.
Of course it's the cost.
But we don't know that if you don't tell us.
Well,
It's a good assumption, but
in
tell us.
meetings, I have not represented my area or my home or my family, but just hearing all these concerns, of course it's a cost. My husband was laid off 2 years ago, and where everybody, I'm going to speak for myself, we're struggling, and then to add something else, especially when we just put a new septic system in our home, it's not feasible for us right now, and that's all I need to say. It's not going to work right now.
And that's the hard thing. I know with the last project, I literally got a phone call from one individual who was going to build a house and said, Bernie, make that happen. This is great news. And someone who literally had built the house the previous year, they said, you got to be kidding me. I'm going to have to decommission, which means, you know, destroy what I haven't even paid for yet. And I mean, it was that tough. But again, this really helps when we communicate back with the other powers that be, if it's this or anything else. Enough's enough. You know, it's almost like an unfunded mandate. But, now, yes.
Yes, Nick Masters here. One thing, Mark brought it up already, I know, but I brought it up at the last SOAR meeting we had. My wife and I and our 3 dogs live together. On the sewer system, I would pay a lot more than Fred Smith, that's the name I'm making up, who's got 10 kids, because I have a bigger house.
Yep.
And when I brought that up, the answer I got was, because that's the way we do it. Well, that's not the way we should do it, I don't think. It should be usage, not, and as far as the letter is concerned, my neighbors, we share the same driveway. They got letters and I didn't, not that I wanted one. but I mean, we have the same driveway, unless that project shut off 20 feet from my house, which it may very well have done. I should have got a letter too. But assessing them should be on how much water and sewer goes through your house, not the value of the house.
Well, as I recall, and really it'd be silly for us to engage too much in something that may not happen, but as I recall, there is a use charge, of course, but the problem is the cost of construction, it does become an ad valorem. And you're right, God bless America, we have this assumption that because your property is
I
worth
got to
more.
answer that comment you just made. Use charge is nothing. I pay $17 every 3 months. That's chicken feed.
I know.
It's the assessment.
I know.
And what we pay for everything else, so you can forget the use charge.
I know.
That's immaterial.
And it's the same thing, we recently provided water to Moffett Road. One of the big issues over the years was if that group of people wanted water, they certainly could have it, they had a right to, but they had to create a district, do the work, pay off the bill, and then they'd be brought into consolidated. The cost of doing that, spread out on an ad valorem, was just ridiculous, so they went without until we found a better plan. But you know what? We found a better plan for them. And maybe as a result of what we're trying to do to help, and that always seems to be the piece that gets missed, we're trying to do something to help people. Maybe as a result of that, we can actually improve the funding sources and get through. And, you know, and the other piece, we had discussed a bit, and then I'm going to stop because we're going where we shouldn't go tonight, I guess. But I don't disagree. If you've got a system you've just put in, it's brand new, and it is meeting any, you know, standards set by a Board of Health, et cetera, the force to compliance is a tough pill to swallow. I understand the why, and the Health Department has a good argument for that. But there need to be some ways to work around that. I've often used Mr. Coffey. I never asked his permission, but I've used him. And that he and his wife, alone in their home, they're both working. And I don't know his personal situation, but that's what it appears to be. And he has some acreage there. If his system is working, they're certainly not taxing the environment the same, as you're saying, Nick, as a family that may have, you know, 4 teenagers and the whole 9 yards. So there are some things with that some we can control, some we can't. But having the dialogue, making an effort to do something, being willing to fail, enables us to address those issues with the other powers that be. And as I said that before, and you know, I do it again. Sometimes I call it tough love, but I think it's the right thing to do. So I'm done. Yes, in the back.
How many times do we have to tell you we don't want it before you back off?
I'll give you an honest answer at the risk of sounding flip. If somebody walked in and said, we just found $30 million to do a project, we think that'll cover it all, I will not say no, they don't want it. I'm going to have to bring that back to the people and say, how's this look?
But you don't have $3 million.
Can I?
No, you said how many times. I answered
Yes,
if.
we just raised our hands.
You'll never have
Three
the...
of us don't want it.
You'll never have the question again unless there's a way to, you know, make it doable. That 3 of you don't, but the majority raise their hands. If it didn't cost anything, we'd like it. We've got to respond to those people too.
If I could, I just would offer a comment, it might seem frustrating for you to hear that. Our job is to be, we have a fiduciary responsibility to the people who elect us. If we are aware of the fact that there is financial aid that can be made available to people to look at, to make a determination as to whether or not they want to go forward and to accept that financial aid, we would be absolutely violating our trust if we didn't bring that information before people. This board's, you know, there's nobody on this board stupid. This board understood the vote that took place on Cumberland Head. We understood the vote that took place recently involving the fire department. We know the financial times that people are faced with. But I would tell you that I don't have any response other than to say to somebody, I have no choice but to bring that information before people. And then they make their response, fine. We're not out here, you know, we're not commissioned salesmen on this thing. We're not trying to sell something to somebody. We're trying to make sure that people understand. In prior years, the number one complaint has always been price, but the real request was, can't you get us some money? Can't you find some money. Well, when we can get a grant that's half the cost, and we can get low-interest loans that's the other half the cost, that's a pretty good deal. It's a better deal than I ever saw for any district on Cumberland Head. We, for years, couldn't get any money because you wouldn't pass a means test. Collectively, you wouldn't pass a means test. And so to have it available, it would be totally irresponsible for us not to make that known to people, that it's here, it's available to you if you want it. If you don't want it, we just tell the authorities that are telling us that it's available that our people are not in a position to go forward with this. That while it, it's the best package that I've seen, it's not enough. It doesn't get people over the hump.
Okay, one last question for me anyway. Just a little clarification, when you're talking about a vote, is there any chance this could go through without a vote?
Only if we got a petition signed by 51% of the people.
Yeah,
We haven't considered that, but that's another option for creation of a district, is if 51% of the people were to get together and say, we want the board to create this district and submit that petition, we could accept that and move forward with the creation of a district. At this point, we're not interested in doing that. We are not interested in ramming anything down anybody's throat. Again, as Mr. Mannix has said, we were given a gift. It behooves us to bring it to you and say, look, here's the option. It's not the exact same thing as it was the last time. I understand the frustration like the supervisor does, and Mr. Mannix. We understand the frustration. Here you are, you guys are asking us again, do we want this? This is different from the other project. This is not all of Cumberland Head. This is an area which has in the past asked for some assistance because of failing septic systems. Because in the springtime, the lake backs up by means of a culvert that's meant to drain the area, backs the lake up, and that area gets flooded. It was an opportunity, and all we're offering you people is the chance to respond to that opportunity. If you say, no, we don't want it, we'll follow that direction. We have nothing to gain, nothing to lose by doing this, but we have everything to lose if we stop bringing the information to you.
Well, unfortunately, it's a gift that not everyone can afford.
But we have, and again, I don't know how else to put it, we have to ask to make sure. If you are a vocal minority, and I'm not trying to cast any aspersions, but if you're a vocal minority and we assume that you are speaking for the majority out there, we're making an awful assumption, and the majority of the people out there will not be best served. We're here to serve everybody, and that includes a vocal minority as well as a vocal majority. So, again, as frustrating as it seems, we're giving you the opportunity to let us know in no uncertain terms, we don't want it. And like the supervisor said, if the next offer comes down that's not at least as good as this offer was, we can say, we couldn't make the last one fly. What makes you think we can make this one fly? But this is different from the last proposal.
Okay. Go ahead.
Is there any other place in New York State that you guys know? I know you do these things on assessments, but in a 6.2-mile radius where assessments are 30,000 to say $1.5 million, in just a 6.2, when you create a district like say Wallace Hill, everybody's assessed almost the same, maybe $20,000 difference. I mean, there's got to be something out there for a place like Cumberland Head that, look at, we got assessments where you got somebody assessed at $100,000 with 4 kids, and you brought that up, about Jim. And you got husband and wife assessed at $800,000, paying 8 times as much.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there can't be any other place in New York State, I can't believe, in a small 6.2-mile radius.
Yeah.
Assessments like that.
My answer to your question, Brian, is yes. Very quickly, yesterday I got back from a trip to the Washington area, and one thing that caught my eye still, and I spent a lot of time in Chantilly, Fairfax County, literally one side of a road had homes that we truly would consider as mansions. They were huge, 5,000 to 6,000 square foot homes. Other side of the road, a probably 1,400 square foot 2-bedroom range. Other side of the road. As things move and they grow and they build, that tends to happen.
Yeah.
So I would assume
just
yes.
curious, it just
But I
seems-
think your question's a real good one, and it isn't so much that does that exist. The real question is, are these residents all treated in that same fashion? I'm afraid that maybe they are, because if you aren't, then there might be some, discrimination or whatever, but I don't know. I really don't know.
I just thought.
But I've seen that before, it's interesting. But anyway, the important thing is, I hope if you go away with anything this evening, you go away with a little bit diffused with the idea that nobody's trying to push anything. We're simply sharing, as Gerard said very well, we're sharing what we have, and what you share back with us helps us to know what to do next.
The target area was created, LaBerge created that. Does it have to be that target area, or could it be changed to include people, maybe people that do want it, and exclude ones that don't? And I'm not saying, this one yes, that one no.
You can't cherry pick, you need a geographic
I realize that, but is there
area.
another inclusive area that might be more willing to have, or does it have to be a $3 million project?
There may be. I'm not going to spend, as was mentioned earlier, I'm not going to spend any more of my time trying to find a better spot.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're really beginning to beat a dead horse to death at that point. And I forgot your second question.
Does it have to be a $3 million project?
Oh, no.
Could it be a $1.5 million
We had
project?
no.
No, not usually.
There had to be matching funds, so, there might have been a little wiggle room there, but the famous they aren't going to pay for most of it, which unfortunately, in communities like ours, I think every community at large has a bell curve of wealth and abilities, but especially in a community like ours, we are upstate New York, we do have a lot of unemployment, et cetera. We are an exception where it takes more than the same little angel dust that they might give to Saratoga County to do the work up here, because our matching part is more of a burden than it is to many other communities. But why I'm persistent is I will do this every time, because the more I hear back from my community on their response to projects that really need to be done, the easier it is for the five of us to go fight to get more of the pie. We get left out up here, and we all know that. We get left out too often, and it's very frustrating. And I know it's very difficult, but there are communities that are getting an awful lot more of our tax dollars in the form of grants and whatnot. So it fuels us. These five people in front of you are as angry as you are. But we have to do some of those little nuances to help us fight the good fight. And we'll see what happens next. Any other questions? I promised before I was going to be quiet. Now I really am. I'll just listen.
Who chose this particular area? Who made the decision that this is where we're going to?
That was collaboratively done with engineering and some understanding of the geography out there, and where, as Gerard mentioned, there are some existing issues with the lake and the drainage. Our water sewer people, when they go out into the community, they know where the greater needs are. But I wouldn't. This is it for this one. That's it, and it's done. Yes.
I'm kind of new to this, so forgive me on this money thing, but is somebody saying we have money for Cumberland Head sewer project and that's it, or do we request this money? Where does this money come from?
When we did the initial project, we received a USDA grant of $12.5 million, which was huge. We also, in knowing that that was still going to leave a bit of a pill to swallow, we continued to look for alternatives. After the fact, we discovered, and I can't remember the date, but we discovered that one of the other sources we were looking for help from came in. They thought they were helping us fund the other project. And we explained to them, that's gone, it's over, it's not going to happen. And they had given us the money versus give it to someone else, so they were like, do you have anything else out there that this could be used to help? Any smaller group of people in that larger area, that we might be able to do something. And that's really how it evolved. We did not go out and seek another grant after the vote. This was all part of that first project. This was not a, you told us no, and we're gonna go find something and make it work. This was all part of the same thing that came in later.
And that's why it had to be Cumberland Head.
It had to be used for that kind of project there, had to be Cumberland Head. I mean, if we had 100% of the people on Tom Miller Road that said, we'll do it, we can't use it there. It was part of the already approved project. It just came in late. And I hadn't thought of that before. I'm sure that maybe was some of the frustration. It seemed like we went out and tried to find new money after you said, no, that isn't how it worked. Any other comments or questions? I really do appreciate you coming here. This is one of the things I think our community has been pretty good about. Remember, we all live in this town too. I've always been a strong proponent of an open door. Some days it gets noisy in there, but that's really what it's about. We need to hear from you, and you need to hear from us sometimes too. But please don't ever be shy. Give any of us a phone call, stop in. We'll be more than glad to tell you what you know. And my one disclaimer I've always said is, if you stop the next day and I give you a different story, it's because in day 2 I learned something new, and it might change the story. That happens, okay? But thank you all. You're more than welcome to stay. But in the event you don't, please drive safe tonight. Again, thank you for coming. Resolution 384, abstract 12A.
Resolved that the abstract of audited claims number 12A-10, 2727 to 2852 for $423,365.13, and abstract 12A-10, 496 to 517 prepaid for the amount of $469,130.54. And be reviewed and received by the audit committee, and the supervisor is hereby authorized to pay said abstract.
Have a motion. Mr. Lemoy, second.
Second.
Mr. Renadette, any discussion? Roll call.
George Renadette?
Yes.
Mark Manick?
Yes.
Paul Moy?
Yes.
Bernie Bassett?
Yes, resolution 383, which is the second copy of what I already did for some reason. Resolution 382, which is a resolution that we had tabled from our last meeting, advertisement for the bid of a generator set.
Whereas Resolution 251 authorized the town board to retain funds from JCO White Commons escrow construction deposit to contribute towards a generator to be purchased and owned by the town of Plattsburgh. Now therefore be resolved that the town clerk is hereby authorized to advertise for said bids project entitled New Generator Set, and said advertisement shall be placed in the Press Republican with bid packages available in the clerk's office. Bids to be opened on December 10, 2010 at 11 a.m. at the Town Hall, 151 Baker Road, Plattsburgh, New York.
Is there a motion to bring this back to the table? I'll ask a second time if there is a motion to bring this resolution back to the table. And only because we do this in other settings, I will ask a third time if there is a motion. And if there is not, resolution 382 falls off. Resolution 384, I've got some notes in here. 385, the historian's monthly report.
Resolved to receive and place on file the historian's monthly report for the month of November 2010.
Have a motion?
So moved.
Mr. Renadette, second. Mr. Mannix, any discussion? Roll call.
George Renadette?
Yes.
Mark Manick?
Yes.
Paul Moy?
Yes.
Bernie Bassett?
Yes. Resolution 386, Parks and Recreation Department monthly report.
Resolved to receive and place on file a report from Melanie Defiant, Recreation and Youth Director for the month of November 2010.
Have a motion? Mr. Lemoy, second.
Second.
Mr. Mannix, any discussion? Roll call.
Gerard Renadette?
Yes.
Mark Mannix?
Yes.
Paul Lemoy?
Yes.
Bernie Bassett?
Yes, Resolution 387, Cumberland Head Fire Department outside user agreement for public sewer.
Whereas the town of Plattsburgh Water and Wastewater Department has received a request from John S. Brown, chairperson of the Cumberland Head Fire District at 38 Firehouse Lane, Plattsburgh, New York, 12901, requesting that the firehouse be connected as an outside user of the Greater Plattsburgh Sewer District. And now therefore it is resolved, excuse me, that upon acceptance and approval of the town attorney, the supervisor is hereby authorized to sign an outside user agreement with the Cumberland Head Fire Department, authorizing the firehouse located at 38 Firehouse Lane to become an outside user of the consolidated sewer district, providing that all appropriate fees as set forth in the agreement and permits the Cumberland Head Fire Department. And it is further resolved that the Cumberland Head Fire Station will be responsible for all installation and other plumbing as needed. And it is further resolved that a copy of this resolution, an outside user agreement, be given to the budget officer and wastewater department and to the town clerk.
Have a motion?
So moved.
Mr. Renadette, second.
Second.
Mr. Lemoy, any discussion?
Mary, the only couple of things where you reference Cumberland Head Fire Department and Cumberland Head Fire Station should all be Cumberland Head Fire District. Because that's the governing body that's going to be paying all those.
I can take your word for that, I don't know, but it makes sense. We will amend to read this.
Our agreement should be with the Cumberland Head Fire District, not with the Cumberland Head Fire Department.
Which we did have in our first whereas, so we need to correct all that.
And it's not the fire station that's responsible for the installation, it's the
Exactly, Cumberland Head
district.
Fire District. Yep.
So everywhere, I'm changing on mine, everywhere where it says either department or station, changing it to district.
Mhm.
I have no problem with the changes.
Okay, I think I have them as well. Any other comments? Oh, right up on the title. Thank you. Roll call.
Gerard Renadette?
Yes.
Mark Mannix? Yes. Paul Lemoy?
Yes.
Bernie Bassett?
Yes, thank you for catching that. Tom. Resolution 388, Tim McCormick, LDC Inc., Board appointment.
Whereas the town board is desirous for filling a vacancy on the Town of Plattsburgh Local Development Corporation Board of Directors, and whereas Mr. Tim McCormick, a resident of Town of Plattsburgh, is interested in joining the LDC Board Incorporated. Now therefore be resolved that Mr. McCormick be appointed to the LDC Board for a term to expire December 31st, 2012. And it be further resolved that a copy of this resolution be given to Mrs. Sears Mack, LDC Board President, and Mr. Correll, CEO, CFO.
A motion.
So moved.
Mr. Mannix, second.
Second.
Mr. Renadette, any discussion? Roll call.
Gerard Renadette?
Yes.
Mark Mannix?
Yes.
Paul Lemoy?
Yes.
Bernie Bassett?
Yes. Resolution 389, Planning Board reappointment of Gail Camp.
Whereas Gail, excuse me, whereas Gail Kemp is willing to continue to serve as a planning board member for a term to expire 12/31/2010. Therefore be resolved that the town board, Town of Plattsburgh, does hereby reappoint Gail Kemp, a resident of Town of Plattsburgh, to the planning board for the term to expire December 31st, 2017. And it be further resolved that Ms. Kemp take the oath of office within 30 days of this resolution. And it be further resolved that a copy of this resolution be given to the board chairman, Robert Pearl, and to Philip Von Bargen, department head.
A motion. Mr. Lemoy, second.
Second.
Mr. Mannix, any discussion? Roll call.
Gerard Renadette?
Yes.
Mark Mannix?
Yes.
Paul Lemoy?
Yes.
Bernie Bassett?
Yes. Resolution 390, reappointment of Jeff Wagner as an alternate to the planning board.
Whereas Jeff Wagner is an alternate member of the planning board and is willing to continue to serve in that capacity. and his term will expire 12/31/2010. And therefore be resolved, as per local law 1 of 1999, the town board of the town of Plattsburgh does hereby reappoint Jeff Wagner as a resident of the town of Plattsburgh to the zoning board of appeals for a term to expire December 31st, 2012. And be further resolved that Mr. Wagner take the oath of office within 30 days of this resolution. And be further resolved that a copy of this resolution be given to the board chairman, Robert Pearl, and Philip Von Bargen, department head.
Have a motion.
So moved.
Mr. Lemoy, second.
Second.
Mr. Mannix, and I believe we want to change zoning board of appeals to planning board
You got it.
in the first result. With that change, roll call, please.
One other thing, yeah, I have a letter that the date does not, from Mr. Von Bargen, the date does not match for the term to expire. Our resolution has December 31st, 2012. The letter has December 31st, 2013. Have we checked to see which is correct?
What we want to do is stagger our alternates as well.
Okay.
Following Mr. Von Bargen's letter, we did some research and unearthed local law number 1 of 99 that said you may appoint up to 3 years. And with some conversation, we decided it would be good to stagger. We had been doing annual appointments, and I told Mr. Wood, who's on his way here, he had some, he was going to be held up at work today, and I told him just drive safely because of the weather. He was concerned, that these appointments, nothing to do with the individuals being appointed by any means, but an annual appointment allowed the board an opportunity, if they needed to make a change, to do so more easily. The other side of the argument that I think you also saw is we spend some time and some money with training our planning board, or our alternate members rather, whichever board. And, as an alternate, if I'm really in this, I'd like to think I'm not going to be subject to the whims of the next board either, and who they want to put in. So I do think it's best, one, that we stagger and that we do have more than the annual appointment. So we made some adjustments after we received Mr. Von Bargen's letter.
Bernie, just for one more comment, having served on the planning board for a year with Jeff, I'm going to tell you, as an alternate, he very rarely misses a meeting as an alternate. I mean, he's an excellent addition to that board and really should be included in the actual planning board at the first earliest convenience we have. Excellent member.
Yeah, good. Any other discussion? Roll call.
Gerard Renner?
Yes.
Mark Mannix?
Yes.
Paul Lemoy?
Yes.
Bernie Bassett?
Yes. Resolution 391, planning board alternate Sandy Lattarell.
Whereas Sandy Lattarell is an alternate member of the planning board and is willing to continue to serve in that capacity, and her term will expire 12/31/2010. Now therefore be resolved, as per local law 1 of 1999, the town board, town of Plattsburgh, does hereby reappoint Miss Sandra Lattarell, is willing to continue to serve as an alternate planning board member for the term to expire December 31st, 2013. And it is further resolved that Ms. Lattarell take the oath of office within 30 days of this resolution. And it be further resolved that a copy of this resolution be given to the planning department head, Mr. Phil Von Bargen, and Robert Pearl, planning chairman, and also to the budget officer.
Have a motion.
So moved.
Mr. Renaudin, second.
Second.
Mr. Lemoy. Just for the record, I would like to amend the title of the resolution to add the reappointment of planning board alternate Sandy Lattarell. We should have reappointment of in the title, similar to the previous one, I believe. Any other discussion? Roll call?
George Renner?
Yes.
Mark Mannix?
Yes.
Paul Lemoy?
Yes.
Bernie Bassett?
Yes. Resolution 392, reappointment of Herb Carpenter to the Board of Ethics.
Whereas Herb Carpenter is a member of the Board of Ethics and is willing to continue to serve in that capacity, and his term will expire 12/31/2010. Therefore be resolved that the town board, town of Plattsburgh, does hereby reappoint Herb Carpenter, a resident of town of Plattsburgh, to the Board of Ethics for a term to expire December 31st, 2014. And it be further resolved that Mr. Carpenter take the oath of office within 30 days of this resolution, and it be further resolved that a copy of this resolution be given to the board chairman, Gerard Renadette.
Motion.
So moved.
Mr. Renadette, second. Mr. Mannix, discussion.
Just by way of clarification on this one, although the Board of Ethics is a 5-member board, Mr. Carpenter is only being appointed to a 4-year term because as a representative board appointee, I should say myself, I'm appointed year by year. So it technically is a 4-person board. Rather than have no appointments made, this keeps a consistency where there will be at least 1 appointment each year, except for the board's appointee.
That's in your call. Thank you for clarifying that. Any other discussion? Roll call?
Gerard Renadette?
Yes.
Mark Manick?
Yes.
Paul Moy?
Yes.
Bernie Bassett?
Yes. Resolution 393, the reappointment of the Zoning Board of Appeals member, Wally Day.
Whereas the appointment of term of Zoning Board of Appeals Chairman, Wally Day, will expire on December 31st, 2010. And whereas Mr. Day is seeking reappointment to the Zoning Board of Appeals, therefore be resolved that the town board does hereby reappoint Wally Day, a resident of town of Plattsburgh, to the town of Plattsburgh Zoning Board of Appeals as a regular member of said board with a term to expire December 31st, 2015, as per town law, section 271. It is further resolved that Mr. Day take the oath of office within 30 days of this resolution.
Have a motion, please.
So moved.
Mr. Lemoy, second.
Second.
Mr. Renadette. I'd like to add a third resolve that a copy of this resolution be given to the department head, Stephen Imoff. Any other discussion? Yes.
I'm just, the language seems to indicate he's not being reappointed as chairman. Reappoint Wally Day, a resident of town of Plattsburgh, as a regular member of said board with a term to expire. He's the chairman of the board.
Do we make the chairman appointment?
The board does that within their own body, I think. Appoint their own chair.
Oh, all right. Excuse me. I thought we appointed the chair.
I'm not sure.
I'm not sure.
My agenda says appoint as chairperson.
I would think the board does. I don't know. Let's reappoint him, and we'll find out if we need to make another appointment. We'll do that. Okay. We'll just appoint him as a regular board member for now, and I'll make note. I don't recall resolutions appointing chairs of these boards, but let's find out.
I don't ever remember on the planning board voting for the chairperson either. So.
But you only had 1 year. Well, okay.
However, his term didn't expire during my 3 years.
There you go. So there's
that might be the problem.
We'll find out. Roll call.
George Renadette?
Yes.
Mark Manick?
Yes.
Paul Moy?
Yes.
Bernie Bassett?
Yes. Okay. Resolution 394, the reappointment of Matt Rogers as an alternate to the Zoning Board of Appeals.
Whereas Matt Rogers is an alternate member of the Zoning Board of Appeals and is willing to continue to serve in that capacity, and his term will expire 12/31/2010. Therefore be resolved, as per local law 1 of 1999, the town board, town of Plattsburgh, does hereby reappoint Matt Rogers, a resident of the town of Plattsburgh, to the Zoning Board of Appeals for a term to expire December 31st, 2011. And it be further resolved that Mr. Rogers take the oath of office within 30 days of this resolution. And it be further resolved that a copy of this resolution be given to Board Chairman Wally Day and to Stephen Imoff, Department Head.
Have a motion.
So moved.
Mr. Mannix, second.
Second.
Mr. Lemoy, any discussion? Roll call.
George Renadette?
Yes.
Mark Manick?
Yes.
Paul Moy?
Yes.
Bernie Bassett?
Yes. Reappointment of Diane Drollet as an alternate to the Zoning Board of Appeals. Resolution 395.
Whereas Diane Drollet is an alternate member of the Zoning Board of Appeals and is willing to continue to serve in that capacity, and her term will expire 12/31/2010. Therefore be resolved that as local law 1 of 2000, In 1999, the town board, town of Plattsburgh, does hereby reappoint Diane Gillette, a resident of town of Plattsburgh, to the zoning board of appeals for a term to expire December 31st, 2012. And it is further resolved that Ms. Gillette take the oath of office within 30 days of this resolution. And it be further resolved that a copy of this resolution be given to the board chairman, Wally Day, and the Stephen Imhoff, department head. Thank you.
Motion.
So,
Mr. Lamore, second.
Second.
Mr. Renadette. Any discussion? Roll call.
Gerard Benedette.
Yes.
Martin Manick.
Yes.
Paul Lemoyne.
Yes.
Bernie Bassett.
Yes. Resolution 396, the reappointment of Mike Cashman as an alternate to the zoning board of appeals.
Whereas Mike Cashman is an alternate member of the zoning board of appeals and is willing to continue to serve in that capacity, and his term will expire 12/31/2010. Therefore be resolved, as per local law 1 of 1999, the town board, town of Plattsburgh, does hereby reappoint Mike Cashman, a resident of town of Plattsburgh, to the zoning board of appeals for a term to expire December 31st, 2013. And it be further resolved that Mr. Cashman take the oath of office within 30 days of this resolution. And it be further resolved that a copy of this resolution be given to board chairman Wally Day and the Stephen Imhoff, department head.
A motion.
so moved.
Mr. Lemoy, second.
Second.
Mr. Renadette. Any discussion? Roll call.
Gerard Renadette.
Yes.
Mark Manick.
Yes.
Paul Lemoyne.
Yes.
Bernie Bassett.
Yes. Resolution 397, Bernard Blair, resignation and retirement.
Whereas Bernard Blair, machine operator number 3 of the highway department, has announced his intent to retire effective January 8, 2011. Therefore be resolved that the town board, with the appreciation of many years of service to the town of Plattsburgh, accept his resignation and place on file Mr. Blair's confirmation letter of retirement with the New York State Board of Retirement. And it be further resolved that the supervisor send a letter of congratulations on behalf of the town board, thanking Mr. Blair for his dedication and years of service to the town.
Have a motion.
So moved.
Mr. Mannix, second.
Second.
Mr. Lemoy, any discussion? Roll call.
Gerard Renadette.
Yes.
Mark Manick.
Yes.
Paul Lemoyne.
Yes.
Bernie Bassett.
Yes. Resolution 398, transfer of Leonard Duquette III to the Highway Department to fill the position of MEO2.
Whereas as indicated in the letter by the Highway Department Superintendent Fred Levine, the Highway Department has a vacancy in the position of MEO Worker 2, and with another vacancy created by the retirement of Bernard Blair, there is a need to add another staff member to the department. Whereas Mr. Lenny Duquette III has requested a transfer from the Water Wastewater Department to the Highway Department as an MEO2, and Mr. Wright, Water Wastewater Assistant Superintendent, supports Mr. Duquette's request. Whereas due to the nature of the request and impacts on current and new negotiated agreements, a letter identifying the salary for this transfer has been signed by Mr. Duquette and a representative of Teamsters Local 687. And whereas Mr. Levine acknowledges the benefits this transfer brings to his department as indicated by the skills and prior experience Mr. Duquette has. Now therefore be resolved that Mr. Lenny Duquette III be transferred to the Highway Department to fill the position of MEO2 effective the first pay period immediately following civil service approval, and upon adoption, a certified copy of this resolution to be given to the budget officer, to the Highway Department Superintendent, Water and Wastewater Supervisor, and one to be placed in Mr. Duquette's personnel file.
Have a motion.
So moved.
Mr. Lemoy, second.
Second.
Mr. Renadette, any discussion? I guess just for the record, this one's a little bit different. The reason we sought a document signed by Mr. Duquette, a union rep, and Mr. Levine is this transfer on the surface at this time would bring to Mr. Duquette a reduction in salary, and that would tend to lend itself to a question and the why. But in reality, with the new agreement, that will be the situation for one pay period, the last one most likely in December, and then he will get a raise as a result of the new agreement with his new position in the highway department that will make his salary have a benefit to the transfer. And it just, you know, and I really wanted to clarify that the only reason we're doing this, there are times when we fast forward 5 years and the guys are talking about how long they've been here and what their titles are and what their salaries are, and it can get very confusing. And 5 years from now or so, somebody's, you know, trying to argue that, you know, it just doesn't seem right because my salary went backwards. Nobody's ever goes backwards. Well, it will for a blink in this one. And nobody had any problem, our union or whatever, and that was important because the Teamster Agreement in 2011 has some very unique changes as far as how salary is treated. So that just seemed like a good practice. I don't see us doing that all the time, but I think any time we need to memorialize a situation to prevent a future confrontation that's difficult to explain and clarify. So that's the reason for that. I just don't want it to leave any cloud on either department or the any of the staff.
Bernie, is this will take effect fairly quickly, because I know Fred is up against it because Bernie Blair's last day was last month.
He's
so.
gone.
Right.
Yeah, and we talked about it a little bit in the work session. The only reason I indicated the retirement of Bernie Blair, the department has had the position vacant. In fact, I think they have 2 MEO2 positions available.
Correct.
Many times, you know, and I understand it, there's a lot of criticism of government on all levels, and that we aren't sharing enough, and that we are, you know, not spending money wisely, and we aren't cutting positions. As I've shared many times in the town of Plattsburgh, we don't air our laundry publicly. We do the work that needs to be done, and we try to project ourselves as a very positive, very progressive community, and that's how we grow. There are positions that haven't been filled in that department, as well as in the water department. We don't have much fat in the bone to trim off, as we discovered going into our 2011 budget. It's only because now with the retirement of Mr. Blair, it's simply, you know, we got to replace one. And we're doing the MEO2 instead of the MEO3. But I did feel it was important to make that note, because on the surface it would appear that this is a golden opportunity to make a cut. You know, we've already made 2 cuts in that department, and this would have been a 3rd, and we can't handle it. Okay, so I'm glad you brought that up, Paul. Any other?
I was just more concerned that he's going to get in to get his training and stuff done before all the snow is really.
Well, he has already driven for the department before. He has experience, and that was one of the beauties of this. He's able to jump in the plow and go.
Good.
And you're right. Otherwise, that's like driving a Sherman tank out there. You don't want to have it be your first day during the first storm.
No.
But this...
unless he's plowing near your mailboxes.
Absolutely not. It becomes a no-plow zone. But anyway, that's the story behind that. Roll call.
George Benedek?
Yes.
Mark Manick?
Yes.
Paul Moy?
Yes.
Bernie Bassett?
Yes. Resolution 399, proclamation acknowledging the Clinton Community College soccer team.
Whereas on Sunday, November 7, 2010, the Clinton Community College women's soccer team defeated Tennessee Community College to capture the National Junior College Athletic Association Division III Soccer Championship in Largo, Maryland. And whereas the victory for the Cougars marked the first ever national championship in the history of the college. And whereas these dedicated women have been coached by Miss Donna Dixon and Miss Melanie Lafayette, who have instilled in their team the qualities and skills that force the level of achievement in the athletics as well as their social and emotional well-being. And whereas the town of Plattsburgh wishes to recognize the hard work and dedication of all the members of the team, as well as Clinton Community College for providing the resources to help facilitate such a national honor. And whereas it is appropriate to demonstrate community support for the efforts of the young women in our community, therefore it be resolved that the Town Board, Town of Plattsburgh declares that Clinton Community College Cougars and the Clinton Community College be recognized for their accomplishment in capturing the Division III National Soccer Championship. Attached proclamation to be signed and to be given to the Lady Cougar and their coaches. And it is further resolved that the Town Board, Town of Plattsburgh, also encourages our community and its local businesses to demonstrate their support for the members of the team and their coaching staff in recognition of the achievements and their work as good ambassadors for the Town of Plattsburgh and the Champlain Valley.
Have a motion.
So moved.
Mr. Mannix, second.
Second.
Mr. Lemoy, any discussion?
I'm doubly pleased to make that motion as they accomplished that feat on my birthday.
They changed it that way.
An event you won't soon forget. We had already done a proclamation. Things happened pretty rapidly, and the timeliness wasn't there. It seemed appropriate. I attended the ceremony and the recognition at Clinton when they returned, and we discussed that some, I think, before. What we didn't do, and it dawned on me that day when I presented our proclamation to their coach, these young ladies should feel very proud about having a proclamation as well, that they can put on the magnet on the refrigerator or put in a frame on their wall, whichever works. So as you're aware, the copies are there. If you would make sure you get those signed, I'll get those to Mel, and she'll be sure the girls get them. One thing Mr. Wood and I spoke today, and one request that he had, I'll give him credit for it, was that we might acknowledge by name and the towns that these young people came from, so listening audience would know who they are. And that was one of the beauties and one of the just really exciting things. It was, like the American hockey team beating the Russian team. These were local kids. They weren't youngsters who had, special trainers. They were our children. And what I was told, as grueling as the pace was, the drive was, they were delayed because of weather. They played their hearts out. They came back to school, and to an individual, each were in class. Each was in class the next morning. All work was completed while they were gone. That says something about a quality of individual that these young people are. So, without further ado, we had Shawnee Trombley from Shazy, Autumn Irwin from St. Lawrence, Jacqueline Bowen from Saranac, Brooke Prey from Sable Valley, Katie McIntosh from Saranac, Brooke Waite from Parishville, Hopkinton, Morgan Aruzzi from Shazy, Chelsea LaRose from Plattsburgh, Ashley Lamberton from Champlain, Kelly Lucia from Beekmantown, Jade Sayward from Willsboro, Danielle Smith from Tottenville, Kim Dragoon from Champlain, Lindsay Shine from Bradford, Pennsylvania, Codia Holland from Willsboro, Aaron Sullivan from Peru, and Molly Bowen from Saranac. And we acknowledge and very much appreciate their efforts and their accomplishment. National champions. We will have those delivered. Anyone have any other closing comments before we take our roll call on this one? A roll call, please.
George Bernadette?
Yes.
Mark Mannix?
Yes.
Paul Lamore? Bernie Bassett?
Yes. Resolution 400, Dr. Joseph Klaus, Chiropractor of the Year.
Whereas the Town of Plattsburgh Town Board periodically recognizes and pays tribute to residents who have achieved recognition and made accomplishments to the community or their profession. Whereas Dr. Joseph Klaus was recently named Chiropractor of the Year by New York State Chiropractic Council Regents Committee for his accomplishments and for his exemplifying the highest standards of chiropractic medicine. Therefore, be resolved that the Town Board is proud to acknowledge and recognize Dr. Joseph Kloss, who has a long-time resident of the community, contributor in the town of Plattsburgh. And it is further resolved that a copy of this resolution and the letter of recognition be given to Dr. Kloss by the supervisor as a representative of the town board.
Have a motion?
So moved.
Mr. Renadette, second.
Second.
Mr. Mannix, any discussion? I will I don't have a copy of that letter done yet, but that will get done. I'll make sure you each have a chance to see that. Can we get a roll call, please?
Gerard Renadette?
Yes.
Martin Mannix?
Yes.
Paul Lemoyne?
Yes.
Bernie Bassett?
Yes. Resolution 401, advertisement for bid of a generator set.
Whereas Resolution 10-251 authorizes the town board to retain funds from the JCO White Commons escrow construction deposit to contribute towards a generator to be purchased and owned by the town. And whereas Resolution 10-382 was tabled and time and dates were changed from the original resolution. And whereas the advertisement for bids for a generator set have reflected the changes in dates and time. Now therefore be resolved that the town clerk is hereby authorized to advertise for bids project entitled New Generator Set, and said advertisement shall be placed in the Press Republican with bid packages to be available in the town clerk's office. Bids will be opened on December 27, 2010 at 11 a.m. at the town of Plattsburgh Town Hall, 151 Baker Road, Plattsburgh, New York.
Have a motion?
So moved.
Mr. Renadette, second. Mr. Lemoyne, any discussion?
The only thing I mentioned each time, maybe on the non-collusive bidding certificate, just want to make sure we have that on the checklist, and sometimes that's easy to forget, so.
Or attached.
I did spend some time on this and actually went through the state OGS bidding process and came up with a really good price on a generator, but that's where it began and ended. When I started to get the quote for the trailer as an add-on, the state contracted generator, I believe he was trying to make all his money back on that he was giving away on state contract back in the price of the trailer, because the price of the trailer was pretty inflated in my opinion, which pushed the price of that way beyond what they'd already got for an estimate if we put it out to bid. So certainly my recommendation that we did put it out to bid after that.
And Mr. Wood and I did discuss with Paul Wright some concerns that the board had about the language in here. He did point out that wherever it does mention specific part of the system, it does say or equal, which I think would cover us if somebody were to come in. He also did touch basically on the reason why they did not want to go with state contract for this. There was some research that was done. Basically, Paul went on the internet and said, look, here's what we can get through state contract. What's your feedback on it? And to a person, everybody who responded that had bought that piece of equipment had nothing at all good to say about it. They said, run. So, again, I think that, although we could save some money, the internet's a great tool. If you find out that the thing you might be buying is a pig in a poke, so.
Yeah, I'm not sure that, and I asked him about that, I'm not sure that he was looking at actual people that install them and service them for a living, as opposed to just people that were happy or unhappy with a said product. I'm not sure that, anybody can post on the internet, and whether you're an expert or not, I'm not really sure. And that's what, when I asked him, who'd you actually get that from? Are they licensed electricians? Are they people in the field that really know what they're talking about? Or is it just somebody that said, well, I got one and the darn thing won't start? Well, it won't start because yearly you don't change the oil and you don't do the required preventive maintenance you're supposed to. And he wasn't really sure about all that. So that's the part of the internet that, if you're going to go look at it, you really have to know who you're really talking to. If you're talking to a qualified expert, again, somebody that services them. If you went to Milton Caterpillar and they said, that's not a brand you want to go to, then I'd say, yeah, that's an expert in the field because he services them. Right. I'm not really sure that what they had on the internet was an expert. But I can tell you this is a good deal putting it out to bid.
Okay. Roll call.
Gerard Renadette?
Yes.
Paul Lemoyne?
Yes.
Bernie Bassett?
Yes.
Martin Mannix?
Yes.
Okay.
Trying to throw a curveball.
How do you say
Actually, Mr. LeBoy and his promotion.
Last one, do that in there.
I got the motor,
You learn to go with it. That's the end of the regularly scheduled agenda. I think we did pretty well, considering we had some guests this evening. Weather is starting to turn. I don't think we can say enough to everyone to drive carefully, to slow down. It was briefly mentioned today, our snowplow drivers will be out there, as they will in every other town for the county and the state, and we need to give them free and unencumbered access to the road when they're out there trying to plow it and put some sand down and keep everybody safe. So
I did have the pleasure of stopping Fred in the hall and passing along to him that I received 2 separate compliments for the sanding on Cumberland Head. Normally, you don't get compliments
the other way
for sanding on Cumberland Head, but they were very pleased with how they had done it, and the individual involved, Fred, was said, you know, the person has been doing this a long time now, and he has, and, you know, and the equipment's changed so that he can regulate how much sand he puts down, or how much salt, and et cetera. But they were very, very pleased with how it was done. They didn't feel that excessive amount was put down. And, he was happy.
good. Feedback, as I said earlier, is always good.
You mean last year?
No, I mean this past week.
Okay, with that said, we are there. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Mr. Renadette, a second. Mr. Lemoyne, any discussion? Roll call.
George Renner.
Yes.
Mark Bennett.
Yes.
Paul Lemoyne.
Yes.
Bernie Bassett.
Yes, we stand adjourned at 8:04.
We don't have any snow out there. Not on my side of Cumberland Head.
There was ice. One morning, we had almost black ice on the road,
On Cumberland Head?
on all over the town. We did. Now, maybe this was more like 10 days ago? A week ago?
Forget.
Okay.
They didn't come by.